Good morning. My name is Bob Wilkinson. I served in the United States Navy from 1968 to 1972. I worked in the supply division. This is myself in my recruiting class in 1968. I went to Vietnam and served on the ground in 1970. This picture here is the hooch that I slept in with another fella. You can see in the background all the combat stuff. And also you'll see over there the gas mask and the flak jacket that I wore during my time in Vietnam. This is what I did in Vietnam. I was in supply, so I drove and managed the supply division, picking up supplies, delivering supplies to different bases, getting supplies out from underneath helicopters when they dropped them, and we dispersed them wherever they needed to go. And I had about 7 or 8 guys that worked for me. Also, I spent over a year on this destroyer, one of the smallest seagoing ships in United States Navy. It had about 150 guys on it. It was very fast, but it didn't ride too well in the water because of the fact that it was so small. Uh, Very cozy ship. This was a berthing compartment where we slept. If you notice, there were 3 racks, or as we called racks, they were beds where we slept. I slept in the top left one. If you notice how close it was to the ductwork, to turn over, I had to get out. I could not turn over when I was in the rack because my shoulder would hit the ductwork above my head. Also, you always wanted to make sure that you got everything out of your locker. The lockers are, if you look down to the right, bottom right, you'll see these metal boxes. Each one of those was a locker that was your locker. Now, if you forgot in the middle of the night and you had a watch and you needed to get your clothes out, you had to wake everybody above that locker up to get your clothes out of there. Now, you only did that once, and somebody would tell you all about what was going to happen to you if you did it more than one time. Very cozy, as you can see, there's 12 guys that lived in this space right here, and this is all the bigger it was. Also, when you went to chow or you went for your meal or you went to watch the movie, you did it on the mess deck. As you can see, this is the mess deck. This is where we ate. If you look real close on the table, you'll notice there's a ledge. Well, when that ship was out to sea rocking back and forth, if you didn't have that ledge, you would be chasing your food off onto the floor. That ledge kept your food permanently kind of wedged where we was right there. We also watched our movie here, and we were hanging a sheet in the middle, and one side you get to see it the right way, and then on the other side you got to see it backwards, and you got to watch it flat back and forth as the ship rolled. This is what we called our main library. Very cozy place. This was what in the Navy they call a head or a restroom. And as you can see, you had to love the guy next to you because there was no walls, there was no anything else. This was just our area that we went. I also served aboard this ship, which is called a destroyer tender, which was on the opposite end from the destroyer. This is one of the bigger ships in the United States Navy. It had a small basketball court. It had full library. It had machine shops that could turn any kind of material they needed to fix destroyers. And when we were out to sea with this thing, I didn't even know it was moving. It was so smooth a ride. I didn't spend a lot of time on this before I got out of Vietnam, or excuse me, out of the Navy. Then I rode this ship to Yokosuka, Japan. Okay, one of the things we had a joke about over there, if you look at this boot, they were called combat boots, and the government made these especially to go to Vietnam. Look very closely there, and you'll see that there's 2 holes in that boot. Now, we joked about it, but Vietnam was a very wet, rainy country, and we would slosh through the water. And so we figured that one of those holes was to let the water in. And when you step down, the other one was to let the water out. We joked about that, but we did have terrible, terrible foot problems. But can you imagine walking across here with those holes in your boot? Yeah, your legs are wet, but now your boots are full of water, and you get done with it, and you come out the other side, and it's not only are your feet soaking wet, but you're pulling the leeches, and you've got to worry about the snakes and everything else that were over there as you walk through this water. But this is what would happen. This is called trench foot. This fellow was on his way back someplace in the rear to take care of his trench feet. This could kill you, get enough infection in you, but you had to keep your feet clean and dry as best you could, or this is what would happen to your feet. Very painful. This is our McDonald's. We had the fastest food in the West. This is a typical sea ration. Sea rations were made in 1945. They used them in the Korean War, but what was left over they gave to us in the 70s, early 60s to mid 70s. This is a typical sea ration. You can see we had wonderful things. We had canned fruit. Canned fruit was really good. Canned spread. Well, dogs probably wouldn't eat the canned spread. The B unit was a surprise. It could be cookies. It could be pound cake. It could be whatever. You also had your salt. Well, in that package with the salt, there would be a spoon, as you can see, but also they gave us 3 cigarettes. Every package had 3 cigarettes. That way they could make sure that we were getting our cancers in us. They were non-filters, usually Lucky Strikes or Philip Morris or some nasty thing that's been in there since 1945. Now, you can imagine something that dry. If you lit it up and you put it in your mouth and you take one big drag on that cigarette, I guarantee you will have burnt fingers because it's so dry, it instantly flamed out on you. We didn't smoke those very often. We traded them off to the locals for some other things that we could get from them. Also, think about this. All this stuff in this can and box was there since 1945. See that little package down there that says toilet paper? Can you imagine that toilet paper had to last you for the day? And if it was that dry, how good really was it? But in that is what we had. Most of the guys would trade it around trying to figure out if there was a better one, but really there wasn't too many better ones that were that old. How did we get into those cans? You're out in the field. This is called a P38. Basically, it's a can opener. Why did the government call it a P38? Because the government numbers everything. It didn't matter what it was. So 1 or 2 guys asked them, what does the 38 stand for then? Well, 38, they said it took 38 revolutions to open a can of sea rations. So somebody must have stood there and watched and counted how many times it took to go around that can. We never did that because we really weren't that interested in finding out what was in the can, let alone how long it took to get in it. Here's some guys that's sitting in an armored personnel carrier having their lunch. Now, I don't know, but I don't see a whole lot of guys smiling when they're eating this stuff in here. We joke about the guy in the back here on the right side. He's got a little smile on his face. We don't know whether he was happy or just had a gas. We're not quite sure. But you'll notice they're not very happy. This is a very important thing to a lot of us in that were in Vietnam. Of the 2.8 million Americans that served in Vietnam, less than that number now is about 500,000 are alive today. They're dying off at a rate, who knows now, per day, thanks to Agent Orange. We weren't killed in Vietnam, but we are being killed now by what they said would not hurt us. The government told us, don't worry about Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a defoliant that they sprayed along the roads, around bases, to kill all the stuff back. If they needed to make a kill zone, they would make it back about, 200-300 yards. But guess what? Agent Orange did cause a problem. I'm a Agent Orange receiver, I'll call it. I have Agent Orange. Not no more than about 4 months ago, I had a full beard and I had hair, but I've been going through chemo, and I'm going to go through radiation and chemo to get rid of cancer that was caused by Agent Orange. A very nasty thing. There's really no cure for the Agent Orange. It just continues to eat at you. Also, over there, they had all kinds of chemicals. They had Agent Green, pink, purple, blue, white, and orange. And that's how it came up with the name Agent Orange. Some of this stuff even was mostly pure arsenic that they sprayed. The rainbow of herbicides of the Vietnam era is what it was called. This is one of the ways that it was sprayed. You can see the fella on the ground in the below spraying it into the foliage, where helicopters are also landing, spraying it all over. It not only was transmitted by doing the spray, but it was also on the trucks. It was on all the things that it sprayed, and it lasted. It didn't go away.